For Taylor Wright, the ending is not in dispute. In August 2019, a Florida jury convicted Ashley MacArthur of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, and the court sentenced her to life in prison. Taylor was 33. She was a mother. She was a former law enforcement officer trying to rebuild stability. And the person held responsible was not a stranger, but someone she trusted enough to spend an ordinary Friday with. This case is built from everyday details, texts, receipts, locations, and the small choices people make when they believe the day will unfold like any other. As you listen, focus on one central question. What changed between a routine plan to run errands and the moment investigators realized Taylor hadn't simply walked away? Tell us which detail you think mattered most. Taylor Wright was born on April 24, 1984. Her childhood was difficult, and by 13 she was in foster care, separated from her biological mother. People who met her later described a woman who learned to be tough early but still wanted connection. A neighbor named Nancy Murkison offered her something simple and rare: a safe home. Taylor moved in with Nancy and her sons, and through her teenage years she had structure meals at a table and adults who showed up. As an adult, Taylor carried that mix of grit and warmth. Friends remembered her as outgoing, the kind of person who spoke to everyone in a room. She also kept pieces of her identity close. One was a distinctive bullet necklace she wore often. In North Carolina, Taylor met Jeff Wright, a U.S. Marine. They married around 2007 and welcomed their son Drake in 2010. Jeff later said Taylor was devoted to Drake and determined to give him the steady upbringing she never had. Taylor found purpose in law enforcement. She served with the Jacksonville Police Department in North Carolina in 2 separate periods between 2008 and 2013, and department leaders would later describe her as brave, spirited, and valued. But life moved, and Taylor eventually made her base in the Pensacola area on Florida's Gulf Coast. After the marriage ended, she worked as a private investigator, driving familiar roads, meeting clients, keeping notes, and trying to build something steady again. She began dating Cassandra Waller, a school administrator with Escambia County Public Schools. By early September 2017, Taylor was in the middle of moving into Cassandra's home, the kind of busy week filled with boxes, lists, and borrowed hands. Those days looked normal, from the outside errands to run places to be messages sent in between tasks. Taylor's circle knew her as someone who kept plans checked in and stayed connected, especially with her son. On Friday morning, September 8, 2017, Taylor got ready in Pensacola and left with a simple agenda for the day: handle a few stops, straighten out details, and then come back to the life she was assembling. She wore her necklace, grabbed her phone, and stepped into the late summer heat. By early September of 2017, Taylor Wright was living inside a narrowing window of time. Court dates were approaching. Money was under scrutiny, and the stability she needed to regain custody of her son depended on decisions she had already made. After the divorce from Jeff Wright, the legal conflict did not end quietly. There were disputes over finances and custody, and a judge ordered marital assets frozen while the case moved forward. Before the marriage, Taylor had received a $100,000 settlement from a serious car accident. She believed that money was hers alone. The court disagreed, and the disagreement became a fault line running through everything that followed. Despite the freeze, Taylor withdrew the funds anyway. The move violated a court order and triggered consequences she could not undo. During a heated argument, police were called. Taylor was arrested for battery. The charge was later dropped, but the damage remained. No department would rehire her after that. Taylor's law enforcement career was effectively over. Without a steady job or housing, she agreed to give Jeff full custody of Drake, a decision that left her focused on one goal: getting back on her feet. The court set a deadline. Taylor was ordered to bring $25,000 to a hearing scheduled for September 12, 2017. 4 days after that date, she would be gone. To keep the money out of view during the proceedings, Taylor split it among people she trusted. One of them was Ashley MacArthur, a friend she had known for about a year. Ashley MacArthur was 40 years old, married, and had previously worked as a crime scene technician with the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. She was familiar with evidence procedures and how investigations unfold. In mid-August, Taylor gave Ashley $34,000 to keep safe. Ashley said she would place it in a safety deposit box. Instead, on August 16th, the entire amount was deposited into Ashley's personal account. The signature on the cashier's check did not match Taylor's known signatures. Within weeks, the money was gone used for credit card payments, a motorcycle, and expensive gifts. At the same time, Ashley was dealing with financial trouble of her own. For years, she had been skimming money from her family's amusement business, altering records and shortchanging clients. She was also leading a double life. Ashley was involved in multiple affairs, including a relationship with Brandon Batty, the owner of a local billiards hall. Money flowed freely and questions were not asked. As September approached, Taylor began asking for her money back. She needed it for court. She asked Ashley to meet at the bank. Each time, Ashley delayed, offering different reasons why it could not happen that day. Taylor's life continued to look ordinary from the outside. She was moving in with Cassandra Waller, helping unpack boxes, making plans. But underneath the pressure was building, tied to a single unresolved problem. By the first week of September, the deadline was no longer abstract. The hearing was days away. The money was missing. And the only person who could explain where it went was the same person Taylor trusted to keep it safe. On the evening of September 7th, plans were made for the following morning. A few errands, a meeting. A chance to straighten things out before court. Nothing about the plan sounded dangerous, and nothing about it suggested it would be the last ordinary decision Taylor Wright would make. Friday, September 8th, 2017. Late morning in Pensacola, Florida. The day begins without urgency. Traffic moves normally. Businesses are open. There is no record of emergency calls connected to Taylor Wright at this point. Sometime before midday, Taylor leaves with Ashley MacArthur. The plan is routine run errands, handle details, and go to the bank. There is no indication from the outside that the schedule is unusual. At approximately 11:20 a.m., Taylor sends a text message to Cassandra Waller. It is the last message sent directly by Taylor that morning. After that message, there is silence. No additional texts are sent from Taylor's phone for several hours. No calls are logged from her number during that window. In the early afternoon, Cassandra begins trying to reach Taylor. The calls go unanswered. Cassandra then contacts Ashley MacArthur, who answers and explains that Taylor is riding horses on family property and will call back later. The plan has changed. Instead of going to the bank, Ashley says they decided to go horseback riding in East Milton. No photographs or posts appear online documenting the outing. The afternoon passes. Cassandra continues to call. There is still no direct response from Taylor. No voicemail is left from Taylor's phone. At 7:58 p.m., a text message arrives from Taylor's phone. It says she will call later and that she is not angry. The wording is brief. It does not include details about where she is. Close to midnight, another message is sent from the same phone. It states that she is okay, that she needs time to think, and that stress from the move in court is weighing on her. There are no outgoing calls. No incoming calls are answered. The phone does not place any emergency requests. After the midnight message activity stops. That same night, Taylor does not contact her son Drake. According to family, this is not typical. He had been used to hearing from her daily. Cassandra, unsettled, reaches out to Jeff Wright in North Carolina. Jeff confirms that he has not heard from Taylor either. He cautions Cassandra about involving police. The night ends without any verified sighting of Taylor Wright. No hospital admissions match her name. No rideshare records show a pickup linked to her phone or Ashley's address. The following days bring continued silence. Taylor's car remains parked at her residence on Berkeley Drive. Her personal belongings are inside. Her passport is still there. On September 14, 2017, Cassandra reports Taylor missing to the Pensacola Police Department. Officers conduct an initial check of the residence and surrounding area. Inside the home, there are no signs of forced entry, no obvious disturbance. The scene suggests a sudden absence rather than a planned departure. By that point, Taylor Wright has been gone for nearly a week. Her phone is silent. Her routine has stopped. And the situation is now serious enough that law enforcement begins formal steps to determine where she went and why. After Taylor Wright was reported missing on September 14th, the search did not begin with a single suspect. It began with a circle who last had contact, who had access, and whose story could be checked against data. Cassandra Waller was scrutinized first. She had reported Taylor missing and turned over electronics. Her movements aligned with phone records, and the initial focus shifted away from her. Jeff Wright was also examined. He was in North Carolina at the time Taylor disappeared, and his whereabouts were confirmed. That removed him from the timeline as the day's final contact. That left Ashley MacArthur, the friend Taylor had been with on September 8th. Ashley gave an account of errands, a change of plans, and a claim that Taylor left later in an Uber with money in a bag. Then bank documents added a fixed date to the story. A cashier's check for $34,000 made out to Taylor had been deposited into Ashley's personal account on August 16th. The signature did not match Taylor's known signatures. Phone location data added a fixed place. On September 8th, Ashley's phone connected to towers near Britt Road in Cantonment, miles away from where she said they had gone. The same phone returned to that area again later that afternoon. The Uber story was tested next. Rideshare and taxi checks did not produce a pickup tied to Ashley's address that day. The timeline now had a missing piece that could not be filled by the explanation already given. Video footage showed Ashley driving a silver Ford F-250 on September 8th. On September 9th at 1:07 p.m., she was recorded at a Home Depot purchasing fast-setting concrete and potting soil. Search warrants followed 3 MacArthur-linked properties, including 2201 Britt Road, the same location tied to the phone data. K-9 teams were brought in to work the wooded area and fence line behind the property. On October 19th, Ashley returned for another police interview. While she spoke inside an interview room, search teams were already in motion. A cadaver dog alerted at Britt Road, and a shallow grave was located encased in concrete and soil. The next day, October 20th, identification was confirmed through dental records. That confirmation changed the case from a missing person investigation to a homicide with a defined location and a defined last contact timeline. On the evening of October 20th, Ashley MacArthur was taken into custody and charged in Taylor Wright's death. With the arrest, the immediate threat to the public was treated as contained, and the search operation shifted into evidence control and secured processing. Once Taylor Wright was identified, the case shifted from search to structure. The question was no longer where she was. It was how the state could prove in court what happened to her and who was responsible. The physical recovery at Britt Road established a fixed endpoint. Remains were found in a shallow grave encased in concrete and potting soil, and investigators documented a gunshot wound to the back of the skull. Identifiers tied the scene back to Taylor dental confirmation and personal items recovered with the remains, including the distinctive bullet necklace family and friends associated with her. From there, prosecutors built the case the way modern investigations often do, layer by layer. Bank records anchored the money trail, a $34,000 cashier's check made out to Taylor, deposited into Ashley MacArthur's account on August 16th, with a signature that did not match Taylor's known signatures. Phone data anchored the movement trail. Cell tower connections placed Ashley's phone near Britt Road on September 8th during the hours she claimed she and Taylor were elsewhere, then back again later that afternoon. Video added a purchase trail. Surveillance showed Ashley at Home Depot on September 9th at 1:07 p.m., buying fast-setting concrete and potting soil, the same materials later found at the burial site. Other checks narrowed the narrative. Rideshare and taxi records did not support the claim that Taylor left Ashley's home in an Uber that day. The timeline had a story, and then it had the absence of proof for that story. Witness testimony added intent. People in Ashley's circle described statements and conversations in the days before Taylor disappeared. Talk about harming her. Talk about drugging a drink. Talk that the state later presented as planning rather than impulse. But the case had limits. There was no murder weapon recovered. Prosecutors did not present a DNA link to the killing. What they had was a chain money location, data surveillance footage, and witness accounts, each piece reinforcing the next. Ashley MacArthur was arrested on October 20th, 2017, and initially charged with second-degree murder. The charge was later upgraded by a grand jury in November to first-degree premeditated murder. In February 2018, a judge granted pretrial release on a $400,000 bond with GPS monitoring and conditions including residing at her mother's home in Gulf Breeze. In January 2019, Ashley was convicted in a separate case for racketeering and organized fraud tied to the family business. On February 21, 2019, she was sentenced to 7 years in state prison plus 3 years of probation. The murder trial began in August 2019. The state argued premeditation and cover-up. The defense attacked the case as circumstantial. After 4 days of testimony and about 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm. The sentence was life in prison with a mandatory minimum of 25 years. The court also imposed an additional life sentence related to the fraud convictions, extending the legal finality of the outcome. For Taylor's family and for Cassandra Waller, the verdict closed the courtroom chapter without restoring what was taken. Drake would grow up without his mother, and Taylor's name would remain attached to a crime defined by a single documented fact. The person she trusted last was the person the jury held responsible.